Call to order this hearing of the Minnesota Senate Taxes Committee. It is Thursday, April 30th. What's the time?
8:36.
It is 8:36 a.m. The quorum is present. We have the minutes of the hearing from April 29th, 2026. Are there corrections or additions? Seeing none, the minutes are approved as presented. Today, our agenda is the markup of our Omnibus tax bill for 2026. Just call on me.
Yep. Chair Rest, you have Senate File 5052, the Senate Omnibus Tax Bill.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I move that Senate File 5052 as amended be taken from the table.
Chair Rest moves that Senate File 5052 as amended be taken from the table. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. So moved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Chair
I
Rest.
offer the A11 amendment, and it will be reviewed by Senate Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. She moves A11 amendment, and I believe you said you'll pass it to council.
Yes, it is another author's amendment, but I would prefer that she explain it.
Absolutely.
Go through it.
Ms. Pollack?
Mr. Chair and members, I will begin going through the amendment, and my colleagues will have some comments throughout to describe the various provisions. Beginning on line 1.3 through 1.6, these correct the effective dates for the beginning farmer credit and extend the due date of the report on the credit by the Rural Finance Agency.
Mr. Chair, members, line 1.7 relates to the Board of City Development Zone Program. This line increases the income tax credit from $3,000 to $5,000.
Mr. Chair, moving to line 1.8 and 1.9, these lines clarify the effective date for the solid waste management tax provision regarding the definition of residential generator. And this is Senator Dibble's bill. Moving to 1.10, this clarifies the scope of the sales tax exemption for the Browerville School District to just reflect that it would be materials used or consumed in the project. Beginning on 1.11 through 1.14, these modify the project costs and the bonding authorizations for the Baxter local sales tax projects. These were from Senator Heinzman's bill. Moving on to 1.15 and 1.16. These reflect changes to the project costs and the bonding authorization for the Sauk Center modification from Senator Westrom. Mr. Chair, moving on to 1.17 through 1.20. These correctly reflect the project costs for the Oak Park Heights local sales tax authorization. Madam Chair, I believe my colleagues have the next couple of lines.
Mr. Chair and members, page 1, lines 21 and 22, remove the reference to cities and special taxing districts in the Fillmore County Disparity Reduction Aid appropriation because that aid is only distributed to counties, towns, and school districts.
Mr. Chair, members, line 23 on page 1 clarifies the 5-year rule extension for the city of Mountain Lake for tax increment financing. This change recognizes that the district previously received a 5-year rule extension.
Mr. Chair, lines 1.24 through 2.7 insert a section that conforms with Article 4, Section 2 of the Delete Everything. That section removes the retention of a portion of Minneapolis's sales tax revenue. And the intention was to have a corresponding reduction to the that revenue's transfer to the MSFA So this just inserts that section.
Mr. Chair, finally, line 2.8 of the amendment through the end inserts the provisions of Senator Drazkowski's bill, Senate File 5032, that would impose a tax on amounts obtained through public program fraud. And that concludes the A11 amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Pollock. Chair Rest, to your bill.
These are just the chair's author's amendment, so it just needs to be adopted.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Rest. Any discussion on the A11? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Senator Housechilds. Are there other amendments? Senator Dibble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to offer the A4, which I will intend to withdraw. I just want to, I don't think it's in your packets. It needs to be handed out. It just, it has to do with Senator Miller's sports events initiative. And it just has to do with the two taxes that are in the list of taxes that, if I'm understanding how the initiative works correctly, how it happens is that once a sporting event has been held in Minnesota, there's an entity then that analyzes all the taxes that were paid that were attributable to that event, and then that amount is then given as a grant to the Minnesota Sports and Events Organization. I can't remember the name of it. And not paying super close attention during the presentation, I learned later that two of those taxes implicate the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund. Didn't quite understand the mechanism. I understand now that, you know, this is kind of a but-for test. You know, but for the event, these taxes would not have been paid. And so then there's some rationale of using that money for, you know, promoting future sporting events, et cetera. But I do think as we move into conference committee, et cetera, we should just take a look at that list of taxes and how this mechanism works, et cetera. So I just wanted to call attention to that. Particularly, you know, we have, you know, Highways or Tax Distribution Fund. That's something I need to think about as the Chair of Transportation. With that, I will withdraw the A4. Thanks.
You're withdrawing it?
I offered it and withdrew it.
Yeah, okay.
All right. All right. If I could offer,
Just
Madam
going
Chair.
and deleting those sections, marking it, but I guess that was premature. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Senator.
Okay.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could offer the A3 amendment. This is also having to do, and this is on behalf of Senator Miller. And that also needs to be handed out. I think, Madam Chair, Senator Miller has been communicating with you about this amendment.
Yes. And he is present online at this point.
Great. All right. Well, I'll let Senator Miller describe the A3 then.
Thank you.
Senator Miller, do you have the language of the amendment with you?
I have, let me see. I do have the language, Madam Chair and members.
You want to speak to it then?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So what this amendment does is it does two things. One, it's just some clarifying language to ensure that Big Ten conference tournaments would be eligible for this program. And then also the University of Minnesota in the current language is the entity that is doing the analysis. And at their request, they've just asked if we could also make sure that other entities would also be able to do that analysis if for some reason the U of M decided not to or could not do it. So it's mostly a technical amendment, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. And thank you, Senator Dibble, for offering it on my behalf.
Are there any questions or comments for Senator Dibble or Senator Miller? Seeing none, we're going to call this the Dibble motion, however, okay? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Any other amendments? Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I have the A5 amendment. This will look familiar to you. It's just a little piece of the state housing tax credit bill that we heard in committee. And it just, you'll see on line 2.19, it just, that language, actually what it does is it allows the income level to allow for meeting the workforce development credit. Actually, I'm going to have Ms. Pollock read exactly that piece.
Okay, and what section of the bill is this amending?
Oh, let me tell you, I'm so sorry. It's on page 20, after line 16, section 18. This is the state housing tax credit piece.
Okay, so it is in, so it is in, it's at the end of Article 2, is what I'm just trying to ascertain. Thank you. So, Ms. Pollock, you going to explain the context of this amendment?
Madam Chair, I'll do my best. This provision was included with Senator Nelson's bill, Senate File 4044, that we heard earlier in the session. The language beginning on 1.5 describes how the money in the housing tax credit contribution account may be used. And then the new language on 2.19 would provide a clarification to say that recipients that receive, that recipients of the credit that whose contribution funds serve households that meet certain income limits, that these projects would not be subject to that restriction.
Further discussion or explanation, Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this aligns the income limits with the workforce housing limit that we already have in law. So it's the very same. It's just aligning those. And the idea is we want people to be able to work and still be able to qualify for the workforce housing.
And Senator Nelson, is this language carried in any other bill?
It's carried in my bill that was in your committee.
No, I mean in any,
Oh,
in any bill outside of the taxes committee.
I don't believe it is.
Okay.
I believe it needs to be in the tax
So it's
committee.
not in the, it wasn't part of a bill that was sent to housing. That's what
It was part of that bill. I don't know if that housing bill is moving.
okay, okay.
Yes.
Just, it's not just coming
No, this
coming
is,
to us
no,
today.
no, thank you, Madam Chair. No, this has been part of the bill from the get-go. Senator Port is a co-sponsor of this with me, and I'm not exactly sure the status of what her bill is. Thank you.
Are there questions or comments for Senator Nelson or council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Anyone else? Senator Dibble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to offer the A9 that is in your packets.
A9, Senator Dibble moves the A9 amendment.
Madam
Senator
Chair, this has to do with AIDS, reimbursement by way of aid for a federal enforcement action matter. I might have Ms. Birch help me if I get stuck here. So this amendment came about, it was first initiated when the state auditor got in touch with me, indicated my failure and the failure of the proponents to have any contact with her prior to the proposal being drafted and presented, which she indicated that she would need to develop a fiscal note that would trigger some expenses on her side. I think we actually got a fairly strong indication she just did not want to do the proactive certification work. So I asked the cities to have some conversation with the Department of Revenue, which precipitated a lot of other ideas, as happens. And so this amendment is the product of those conversations. And so the first change is kind of eliminating some of the eligible expenses and identifying some others. So you see that on lines 1.3 to 1.10, like legal expenses are eliminated, but vehicle towing and impoundment and some other things are added. The certification piece is not, in terms of eligible expenses, is not submitted to the state auditor, but rather is attested to by the administrator, manager, or finance director of a given city. And they have to notarize it as such, that it's, they self-certified those eligible expenses as eligible. If you skip down to line 18 on the first page, the state auditor still has the ability and the authority to audit those expenses, those submissions. Then moving on to line 21, there was some sorting out of the language to fulfill the intent. If in fact the amount of money that is certified, the amount of costs that are eligible are certified, and there's sufficient amount appropriated, then of course, folks are, cities are paid those amounts. If it's less than what has been identified, then it's distributed on a proportional basis, I think is the best way to describe that. And then there's just some language cleanup, just around submitting to the federal government for those eligible costs, just kind of conforming language, to refer back to earlier in the provision to describe that more accurately. And then on line 2.8, it is conceivable that the Department of Revenue, given that the state auditor is not going to be engaged proactively, might have a little bit more administrative work on their hands to do some of the certification and verification. So the idea there is to allow some administrative costs. So that's the change, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'll look at Ms. Birch. Should I describe it thoroughly and accurately? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Senator Dibble's A9 amendment? Essentially transferring the responsibility of the data gathering and so forth to the local governments. And then having it be subject to an audit by the state auditor, if the state auditor chooses.
Correct.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Any other amendments? It's a pretty easy morning. It's not even 9 o'clock. So we're going to have a motion from Senator Hauschild that Senate File 5052 as amended be recommended to pass. And then we'll have discussion from members of the committee after that. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion prevails. The Senate Files 5052 then will make its way to the Senate floor. This is the last scheduled meeting of our committee, and I want to say a few thank yous, certainly to our staff, and talked about them a little bit yesterday, but also the committee members these last 4 years, and where we had the opportunity to welcome a new one after her election earlier this year, Senator Henningsen Yeager. But she was a quick learner. The rest of the committee members are seasoned veterans, have been chairs of committees. In fact, I think the only one that hasn't been is Senator Hauschild. But he's been on the committee since his election in 2022. And on the night of our first caucus following that election, Senator Hauschild came up to me and said, "I want to be on the tax committee." And I said, "Well, you're a freshman in more ways than one, by the way." But and we don't put freshmen on the taxes committee. And he kept insisting, and I said, "Well, you know, if you come on the tax committee, you have to vote for the bill. You can't vote no." And he said, "I'll vote yes," as if it were a burden. But so we welcomed him, and he has been an extraordinary member of our committee as well. And certainly it's nice to have people who are knowledgeable in various parts of our tax system, as well as generalists. And Senator Putnam is here promoting a modern agriculture in tax policy, and he chairs, of course, the Ag Committee that also includes veterans issues. And we do have a slight improvement in the market value exclusion for veterans in this bill, is acknowledging that. Senator Drazkowski, of course, came to us also, I think, just this term, right? Yeah. And Senator Drazkowski brought with him a great reputation. And and we were all nervous about what kind of a member is he going to be. And I was in the sergeant's office, and Senator Drazkowski comes in because he's going to a tour of the Capitol and of the Senate spaces and so forth. And so I thought this was a great opportunity and so forth, because I was sure he was going to be on the tax committee. And that day was my first time I met you. And then I joined him on his tour of the building and spaces and so forth with the sergeant. And I've been very grateful for his participation on this committee ever since. Senator Dibble could be easily sitting in this space 4 years ago as well. But he chose to stick with transportation, and he's done a marvelous job raising taxes. That's what I can hardly not say that. But the impact of his leadership on roads and bridges and transit initiatives has been invaluable. And then, of course, Senator Nelson, who played Bocelli.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
Andre Buccelli.
Yeah. For us to walk in on this last meeting of the tax committee, and that was really enjoyable as well. And of course, she has been indeed a chair of this committee, and has been a great colleague. We learn from one another and work on some projects together, and I appreciate that very much. And her mentoring, really, in local sales tax issues, Senator Hemmingson Yeager, who is, once again, a very welcome member of this committee. And then, of course, Senator Weber, Republican lead, has not only been a colleague, but has become a friend. So I want to especially thank the members for their, oh, and I forgot, Senator Miller has all kinds of jobs, and one of them is not here. And he's online, and he has brought really innovative ideas to this committee. And I particularly think that the provision that Senator Dibble has worked with him on about the way in which Minnesota can become much more competitive in bringing national events to our state that often come through a bidding process, and that costs money. And he's come up with, based on the model that's used in the state of Texas, a way of doing that is of it doesn't raise any taxes. It does carve out, and you heard Senator Dibble and Senator Miller describe that, carve out the some of the revenue that comes into the state from these events to become seed money to be able to bid on other events. And the bill has a list of dozens, quite frankly, of events that would be appealing to any number of different interests of families for their entertainment here in Minnesota, and be able to really showcase how welcoming Minnesota, the business community, can be. And then, once again, Senator Weber, thank you very, very much. So, anybody else want to say anything? Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too wish to take this opportunity to issue my thanks, certainly to the commissioner and his staff. We have always had a good relationship. I was pleased to be able to support him in his appointment to that position. And also I want to thank our nonpartisan staff. They are truly wonderful, talented, and have always been available to answer any question, to give any information to help us understand where we are at with these different bills. Our partisan staff, Dan Mickelberg and Ryan Thornton, my current LA and my previous LAs, and your staff as well, your LA and Mr. Bergeron as the committee administrator. Both of them have been so helpful when during that time period where we had about 6 weeks as co-chairs. They were cooperated with my folks so well and were extremely respectful, and that is so much appreciated. Also, I want to thank the current members of the tax committee with whom I've served. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I thank you. And, then we come to you, Senator Rest. My first 8 years in the Senate, we never really crossed paths too much. And then after the 20 election, I was appointed to the tax committee and also became the property tax subcommittee chair, which put me in charge of the tax increment financing, which Senator Klein and I met to go through those bills. And you asked if you could sit in with those meetings. And recognizing your long experience with tax increment financing, I obviously said yes, and I thank you for that assistance. I'd had, experience with tax increment financing, having served 16 years in local government, but certainly you provided an insight that I could not have. I think back also to these past 4 years as the lead, and a couple of years ago, and just for the record, I'm not going to mention the 24 tax bill, Madam Chair.
Okay, I don't like to think about it either.
But I remember when one of my cities lost their largest employer and were left sitting with a half-completed multifamily housing project. And this was in early April. And you said to me, Senator Weber, you figure out what you need to have. We will have a hearing on the bill. And we put a bill together, and you were supportive of it, and it went through the committee. And I remember you saying to me, as you've said to other members of my caucus when they've had emergency situations or situations that required assistance in their communities, you said, don't worry, it's in the bill. You do not have to vote for the bill. Your project will be in the bill. And that shows true leadership. And I thank you for that. And yes, I think back to when you became the chair and I the lead. I think those of us, those sitting out in the audience were wondering, well, how is this going to work? We both have a reputation for having strong opinions and not being afraid to share those opinions. And I think what we have managed to do is, number one, surprise them, which is always a good thing in committee work. But number two, actually demonstrate to people that even with diverse opinions, through mutual respect and cooperation, we can coexist. And we can turn out a product that maybe not each of us approve of or can vote for, but we can do so in a respectful manner. Sometimes that has been lost all too often in the current political picture. In the next 2 weeks, you and I will probably continue to vote, for the most part differently, on the Senate floor. But when we adjourn sine die and we walk off, I will walk off considering you a worthy opponent, a true colleague, and a good friend. Thank you.
There's some other people that we want to thank as well. And to the extent that we can, we want to name them. And Senator Weber mentioned his staff and mine, Mr. Montresor and Mr. Berggren. And I also extend my appreciation to your staff and the people that help set up our pages. I want to name them as well: Jillian Cherney, Paige Cox, Josephine Pacheco, Sunny Amenti, Sharu Solov, and our sergeants who provide security in this room for us, Hikmet Askarov and Randy LaFoy. And for those of you that have been asking or looking at the DE amendment, you'll notice that the PTE provision is not there. That's because we sent it to the floor, a 9-0 vote, and it is going to be the first amendment that we offer on the floor. And the reason why I did that is that it was a unanimous vote for that bill here, unanimous Democrats and Republicans. And it seemed to me that our group should offer that opportunity to all members of the Senate. And I'm hoping that by bringing that amendment forward, we could once again lead the way for the Minnesota House. And then finally, and I think this is a thank you that would come from all of us, is most of the people sitting out here are lobbyists. And quite frankly, we could not do our work nearly as well without the help, advice that you give us. And even when we don't listen to it. But you really are very, very special people. You're a very special part of this process here. And I think that all of us, we're going to stop right this second, we want to thank you. So now, one final thing, the motion I made was incorrect. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that the motion by which Senate File 5052 as amended was passed be now reconsidered. Just on the motion.
On that motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, now the bill is now in front of us.
Yep.
And what the motion didn't have in it was a direction for the staff to make technical corrections. And when I mentioned thanking the lobbyists, I also include the lobbying done by the Department of Revenue in their very, very fine Commissioner Marquardt and Joanna Bears in presenting always with great professionalism the work and the opinions and the policies of a governor. So we appreciate that as well. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that Senate File 5052 as amended be recommended to pass and instruct staff to make any technical and conforming changes.
Okay, so moved. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman and members, then I think we are adjourned. I want to thank the members of the Taxes Committee, both DFLers and Republican members alike, for their help in putting this tax bill together. It has features that are brought by members of both parties, both caucuses, on behalf of their constituents, and that's the way in which this committee has operated for years. It's no secret that Minnesotans, our families, our communities, and our healthcare system are all hurting. It's also no secret that the pain has been accelerated by federal actions and legislation that have targeted our state and many of the things that Minnesotans, rely upon. The big Republican budget bill that we've had to deal with that was passed last summer is hurting our state. It pays for huge tax cuts for the wealthiest Minnesotans, wealthiest Americans, by cutting health care and food support that Minnesota families rely upon. Federal tax policies and the president's war with Iran are raising costs for Minnesotans at both the grocery store and at the gas pump. And the ripple effect of those federal decisions are devastating our families, our communities, our farmers, and our businesses. There is no way our state government alone can backfill all of that, but through this tax bill, and other measures like the Health and Human Services bill that the Senate passed yesterday, we are responding to the immediate needs of Minnesotans. So what does the tax bill do? The four of us are here this morning to give you some insights into the effects and the impact of the tax bill. It makes life more affordable. We talk a lot about affordability. This tax bill delivers by providing a 12% property tax refund increase for this year. It's more than $100 million in direct property tax relief for Minnesotans through that one-time increase in property tax refunds for homeowners. And Senator Houschild is going to discuss that in a few moments. Secondly, it responds to the damage caused by Operation Metro Surge with a $2 million provision to ensure our communities and our taxpayers don't bear the costs of that recent action alone. Our bill also includes the provisions for the sustainable aviation fuel by establishing a credit and expands that support for development of clean alternative fuels to jet fuel using Minnesota-grown resources. Senator Dibble is going to comment on both of those measures, and it responds to the needs of agriculture, which is an essential part of our state's economy. Senator Putnam will be talking about that. But first, I want to talk about HCMC. For the last 20 years, there's been a local sales tax to aid in constructing Target Field. That tax is coming to an end, and this building, this structure that is owned by the county, we're going to install a new tax to replace that one. And it is a healthcare tax, and the rate is going to be a quarter cent, 0.25. We're looking to help stabilize hospitals throughout Minnesota, but this bill is focused mostly on the healthcare hospitals in Hennepin County, notably HCMC, a level 1 trauma center for pediatric care, and North Memorial, which is a level 1 trauma center for adult health care. We are going to provide for Hennepin County in particular maximum flexibility for how they can use the dollars. The dollars going to North Memorial in this proposal must be used for the cost of uncompensated care. Some people would call it charity care. Anybody who walks into those hospitals must be served, and they are served, and they're served enthusiastically and by some of the finest doctors that in our country, quite frankly. And but it's important to note that the county also needs to be able to plan for facilities, the upkeep of facilities, and this bill, as opposed to the bill we passed yesterday, has gives to the county the opportunity for using the dollars that come to them for keeping up the facilities, the actual buildings in which the health care is delivered. And then secondly, there's a new tax that's not new to the Senate, actually. We passed a social media tax last year that, but this tax only affects the 14 largest social media platforms in the world that do business here in Minnesota. Only affects those social media platforms and their billionaire owners. We all know that huge social media companies have made billions of dollars, almost incalculable, from selling the consumer data they are now collecting from Minnesotans at no charge, for free. This tax will generate millions in needed revenue for our state, and importantly, not one single Minnesotan will pay a penny of it, not 1 cent. The social media tax will raise millions of dollars for our state going forward and leave Minnesotans untouched. The tax will also help modernize Minnesota's tax code as we are beginning the second quarter of the 21st century and realizing and recognizing, celebrating a dawning age, a new age of technology, and we will remain in control of it, but the use of our data is not going to be free. So thank you very much, and I'm going to ask now the other members of the committee who are here with me to for comments, and we'll start with Senator Hellstrom.
Well, thank you so much, Chair Rest, for this tax omnibus bill. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Grant Hochschild, and I serve as the Vice Chair of the Senate Tax Committee. And Chair Rest is exactly right. What we have faced here in Minnesota is a direct result of this federal administration forcing cruel cuts down upon us at the federal level, specifically from the big beautiful bill, which I have always said is the biggest oxymoron I've ever heard in legislative history. And what this bill does is it targets specifically the most vulnerable in our communities. It comes after our health care by cutting Medicaid. It comes after people who are vulnerable and lack access to food by cutting SNAP benefits. And as the senator from the most rural district in the state, I know that that federal action disproportionately impacts the most rural places in our state. And what I hear time and time again when I visit with constituents, when I'm door knocking in my communities, when I'm hosting town halls all across greater Minnesota, I hear folks talk about the increasing costs that they are facing. And while some of those costs may be out of our hands, a lot of them are the direct result of the decisions being made at the federal level. And so what this package does specifically is it's our effort to address the cruel cuts that are coming from the federal level and helping provide relief for Minnesotans. And some of the things that I'm most proud of in the bill is specifically the $100.8 million that we are providing in direct property tax refunds for Minnesotans. Almost 80% of Minnesotans would benefit from this tax relief. The deadline is in August, and if we're able to get this bill into law, it will provide direct relief of approximately $171 per resident in Minnesota in direct property tax relief back in their pockets. While this may seem like just one thing that we can do for rising costs, we know that the federal actions are directly impacting local government's ability to operate, and those costs are being passed down to property owners. So this is our response, saying we can provide a little bit of relief to property owners and help them get by. This is on top of what we did in the 2023 bill, where we also passed a property tax refund directly to Minnesotans. We directed historic amounts in local government aid and county program aid to communities to help reduce property taxes. We provided homeless aid, which we're getting rid of the sunset in this bill, which helps ensure that property taxes don't rise on communities, helping address homelessness. And we provided payment in lieu of taxes in communities like mine with a lot of public lands to help reduce those costs on property owners. So we have done a heck of a lot to address costs on Minnesotans, and this is just another way that we can do that. A couple of the provisions under the property tax area is we are increasing the market value exclusion for disabled veterans for the first time since 2008. I can't tell you the number of veterans that I have talked to in my communities who are begging us to increase that exemption because they're worried that they're going to be kicked out of their home. And I don't think us on the Senate Tax Committee want it to be on our watch that disabled veterans are not able to afford their home. So we're increasing that exemption so that they can stay in their home and making that a value statement here in the Senate Tax Committee. And with that, I will pass it, I believe, next to Senator Dibble, who will talk a little bit more about the bill.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be able to discuss kind of a variation on a theme here. A couple of elements that are in the bill, and I thank Chair Rest for including those. Senator Hochschild talked about the consequence to our families and their economic stability, their economic viability from the cruel attacks that are being forced on us by this current federal administration. That same effect in terms of instability to our communities and people's lives was felt by the consequence of what some call an enforcement action, others call a military action of Metro Surge in our communities. People are familiar, of course, with the social disorder, the mayhem that was caused by unplanned, uncoordinated activities of federal agents. And our communities had to respond. We're familiar, of course, that people felt fearful and they couldn't leave their homes, and were responding in other bills in other parts of the legislature to those crises that present people's ability to pay rent, et cetera. But there was a particularly onerous consequence to our community public budgets, our city's public budgets, because when we need to provide for public safety and emergency response and basic city operations, local property taxpayers are left holding the bag. So what this bill does is it provides some resources to make and regain some of those funds and some of that funding that was lost to those local units of government from those federal actions. So in so doing, we're supporting our communities, we're protecting our state's fiscal integrity, we're providing a practical and balanced step to help stabilize local budgets so they can continue to provide essential services, particularly those that pertain to public safety and good order. I'm pleased a number of cities have stepped forward and said they were negatively impacted by the federal government, and they're seeking the support from the state. In turn, they're going to go to the federal government and ask them to make them whole. But in lieu of that, of course, we have these resources in place, and that'll help support, stabilize, and that has, of course, a very positive consequence for implications on our property taxes. I'm also really excited to talk about a forward-looking investment in Minnesota's economy and climate leadership. Timely, of course, because we're hearing about the spike in aviation fuel as a consequence of the war in Iran. What's important is that we develop a market for what is called sustainable aviation fuel, SAF or SAF. So the provision in this bill provides up to $1.50 per gallon incentive, a credit to achieve a local market, and actually I think it would have a positive benefit for the volatility in sustainable aviation fuel prices, which is something we desperately need right now. It will spur in-state production and like I said, provide cleaner aviation fuel and address our climate challenges. So it would really position Minnesota at the forefront of a rapidly growing global industry. It drives private investment, it creates good paying jobs, builds out the supply chain for low carbon fuels, and delivers meaningful environmental benefits, reducing our life cycle greenhouse gas emissions in that supply chain, and rewards agricultural innovations that were sparked and spurred and inspired by research here in Minnesota at our own University of Minnesota. And with these, what we call forever green crops, these winter hardy crops like camelina and pennycress, which we can plant in the fall, winter's over, harvest in the spring, and then those fields are ready for more traditional kinds of planting that we're familiar with. We have this benefit of rejuvenating the soil, reducing erosion, improving water quality, creating new revenue streams for farmers. So, it's inspired by Don Wise, who sparked the Forever Green Initiative. May his name be a blessed memory. We're going to turn that homegrown innovation into real economic opportunity and durable environmental progress. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Clinton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to sort of piggyback just briefly on what Senator Dibble was just talking about. Because sustainable aviation fuel is a response to a problem now, but it also anticipates problems in the future. And I think that's a fantastic theme of this bill, something about which I am very proud. And I think we should Minnesotans should be proud of the leadership of Senator Rest for creating a tax bill that does not just understand and respond to modern day problems, to the realities that every Minnesotan is facing right now, but also anticipates the future. This is a tax bill for now and for tomorrow at the same time. And I'm very grateful, Senator Rest, for your leadership on that front. And we see that in the social media tax that Senator Rest was talking about earlier. This is an innovative way of understanding the reality that we face right now. It's not an idea or a fantasy. This is the real life that we face, and this is a real element of the context in which we exist currently. And so Senator Rest's visionary, I think, interest in helping get those companies that profit for free from the data that we use every day is, I think, an appropriate response to today's challenges, but also anticipates the challenging future that we have before us. Now, those challenges are especially acute when it comes to agriculture. We all know that agriculture is both the economic and cultural heart of Minnesota in a number of different ways. But something I don't think we appreciate enough is that some of the economic challenges that face every Minnesotan faced farmers especially acutely. We're all struggling right now with the chaos and the unserious nature of the federal government. And it's our job as your local legislators to be the grown-ups in the room and to come up with policies that can actually truly help people in the crises that they currently face. One of the initiatives in this bill that I think is well overdue, and I'm very grateful to see, is lifting the cap on the beginning farmer tax credit extension. That's an incredibly important bill that helps build transitions, helps build relationships between parents and children when they pass their farm on to the next generation, helps build relationships within communities when it enables a farmer to encourage a brand new farmer to get into the industry. The lifting of this cap is going to do wonderful things throughout agriculture, throughout every different commodity and every different size farm. So thank you, Senator Russ, for including this provision because it's incredibly important for every farmer in the state of Minnesota, and therefore for all of Minnesota, given farmers' essential nature in our economy and our culture. There are a number of other provisions in here that deal with agriculture, but every single one of them deals with a contemporary crisis, understanding it through a contemporary lens. We had old provisions that had to do with proximity, how close your farm had to be to someone else's farm in order to get certain homestead tax credits. And we've solved that problem by thinking about how people really live their lives today in this bill. So when you add together all of these different provisions about agriculture and all the provisions that my colleagues have already discussed, it becomes very clear that this is a bill that speaks to Minnesotans today, to the challenges that they face right now, but with an eye on the future and how to make things better.
Thank you.
Senator, can you fill us in on what's next?
Yes, well, we passed the bill to the floor, and we're now waiting for the leaders to indicate when it's going to be heard on the floor. And we believe we've taken the lead in bringing to the floor a very solid tax bill. What has not happened is similar action by the House. And in other areas as well, it is the Senate that has been leading the House, showing them the way, if you will. And we hope that can happen also through this tax bill. So we're ready to go. Protocols say that a tax bill has to start in the House. What that means, however, just it has to pass the House. A bill has to pass the House first. So the Minnesota Senate is ready to discuss, to debate, and to pass a tax bill. And we invite the Minnesota House, which admittedly perhaps has more of a challenge than we do in the Senate, but we've shown them the way, and we hope that they will act quickly now to looking over our bill. I'd be happy if they took the whole thing, of course, but maybe they have some other provisions that they're going to like as well. But we're ready. We're ready, and we are, we hope it's not going to be a fight, but we're ready to move forward in this 21st century with modern tax policy, and we hope that the House will join us.
The final thoughts? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.